Hello everyone, in this short video we are going to talk about the third step of policy analysis, construct the alternatives. So we already talked about define the problem, and we talked about how you're gonna gather more evidence to refine your problem. So suppose by far you already clearly defined your problem. Now we need to come up with solutions. So we are going to talk about what is a policy alternative. And generally speaking, we are going to start with a comprehensive list, right? So then we focus or narrow down. But how can we narrow down this, right? We need to model the system in which the problem is located. And we need to simplify the list based on our conceptualization. And do remember that, all right, even you have a type of alternative, and you will still be able to create different points on a continuum as alternatives. So for instance, you can have a low end, median, or high end solution, right? So this is actually the same spectrum, however, at different levels. All right, so what really is an alternative? Alternatives basically means then the problem, but it can be solved by different solutions, right? So in policy analysis, which means you have different kinds of policy options. So generally speaking, you either to solve or mitigate the problem if the problem is inherently very difficult to solve. For instance, poverty alleviation, right? You probably can never solve this. However, you at least have some methods, solutions, and alternatives to mitigate the problem. And of course, if you come up with several different alternatives, it doesn't necessarily mean they are mutually exclusive, right? It could be like, combine two different things into one policy. Again, in poverty alleviation, right, you have private solution, you have societal solution, nonprofit philanthropic actions, right? And you also have government solution. But maybe you need to combine all of them, and still that may not be sufficient enough. Okay, so when you're making a decision like which alternative you are going to go for, right, taking all the constraints into consideration, then you need to rank them, right? Okay, this is the most preferred, right? So then you choose that one. So the process is like, okay, you come up with a comprehensive list, right? So brainstorm, list all the alternatives you wanted to consider, right? Then you focus on. And also, when you are thinking about like all the alternatives, you probably can use the out-of-the-box thinking, right? So if you are focused on education area, you maybe borrow some ideas from environmental protection. So their best practice might inspire you to come up with creative solutions in education. All right. Now, model the system, which means when you are thinking about your alternatives, you really need to think about different models that can help you to address the issues that you want to address. So then couple four different models we are going to talk about here. So the first thing is the market models based on exchange, right? So if I want you to do something, change the behavior, and then I offer you something, right? So this is a market model. The production model is, all right, if you lack something, that let's produce it. So this is solely based on supply chain idea, right? So there's the demand, then you produce it, then you supply it. The conformity model basically means we take social pressure or peer influence into consideration, right? If the majority is doing this or doing that, then you probably think, okay, that's probably a socially acceptable way to do it. And the evolutionary model basically means, okay, if you are going to do this, will this actually help the whole group to involve? So we talked about this, right? So you want to come up with a comprehensive list. Then you want to simplify it, narrow down. So how can you do this? So the first thing you need to think about is the conceptualization. Is sum up the basic strategy thrust of an alternative in a simple sentence, which will make you really focus on the core idea about each of your alternatives. All right, so then you distinguish, right, the basic alternative and its variants. So why you want to do this? Because that will give you a clear idea on what is the core or the basic alternative, right? So the others will be a slight different from this, even for from a continuity perspective, right? You still have a basic one, maybe in the middle, right? So then you can say, okay, I have a high-end solution or low-end solution. That's why you need conceptualize it, and you need to set up the basic strategy or the basic alternative. All right, so we already talked about this, right? So you have a point, and that point could be based on the mean, the average value, right? So that's what we usually come up with, but it can also based on the mode, the most frequently appeared number, or the median. Right, so it's all contingent because you also need to consider the political uncertainty, especially if you consider this is a bipartisan solution, right? You need to get the alternative be supported by both parties. Then you really need to avoid those, might be polarized. So you don't want to risk that, and you also need to consider the administrative uncertainty. There's many issues surrounding the administrative system, right? So bureaucracy, budget issue, government may lock down, right? So then you really need to focus on the administrative uncertainty as well. And also, now we don't talk about long-term technology improvements, but generally speaking, you need to look at the trends. Now, especially nowadays, right, with the development of IT, information technology, and there's many things might change in the future. For instance, what about the robots? What about artificial intelligence? What about big data? And how these are gonna influence the particular policy area you're choosing? All right, so that will be all for this short video. So consider, let's summarize it, right? So first, you want to come up with a comprehensive list, as comprehensive as possible. Then you, based on your conceptualization, you narrow it down, come up with a basic one, all right, the very core one that you want to focus on. Then you have some variations, right? So by doing so, you can narrow down to simplify your list, right, from a very comprehensive one to a more focused one. And also, you need to think about, if you only focus on the basic ones, it can be from a continuum perspective, right? So, which means you can select a point as the basic option, then you have high, low, and solutions. And also, you need to consider the political, administrative, and technical uncertainties when you are thinking about your policy alternatives. All right, that will be all. Thank you very much.